This is a women's self-defense class. Under the instructor's guidance, the woman's inner rage began to ignite. She flashed back to the image of her cheating husband. She treated the human punching bag in front of her, as if he were her husband, and unleashed a violent fury of blows. Terrified, the man tried to call a timeout, but she showed no intention of stopping. She continued to punch and kick him, not stopping until she had vented all her resentment. All to my heart, the man seemed to sense her inner pain, and reached out to comfort her. It's okay. She looked up at the man, only to realize he was someone she knew. The woman's name is Sandy. She used to live in a happy family of 4. Since getting married, she had been a devoted stay-at-home mom, keeping the household in perfect order. However, a single video shattered her peaceful life. She was watching footage from her son's birthday, when in the background of the video, she unexpectedly saw her husband having an affair. She simply couldn't believe it. She felt like her whole world was collapsing. She quickly filed for divorce, and took her 2 children out of her husband's mansion. Having just arrived in the big city, with nowhere else to go, she had to stay in a hotel. Although she held a master's degree from a top university, she had been a housewife for years. Because she lacked recent work experience, she faced rejection after rejection. Finally, she landed an interview at a sports network for an internship position. She hadn't been idle even while the kids were at school. She had been compiling sports statistics at home. When she handed her data to the interviewer, he was completely shocked, and hired her on the spot. Later, Sandy took her children to a coffee shop to ask the staff if there were any apartments for rent. It turned out the landlord was Aram. She also learned from a colleague that Aram used to be an excellent nanny. Sandy struggled to drag the heavy furniture by herself, and overwhelmed with grievance, she couldn't help but cry. Once everything was settled, Sandy caught up with her best friend about her new life. Her life was slowly getting back on track, but since she was busy with work, and didn't have time to watch the kids, she really needed to find a reliable sitter. Just then, Aram happened to walk by. Sandy remembered hearing that he had experience as a nanny, so her friend called him over. Aram stopped when he heard them. Sandy immediately ducked behind her friend, but she was starting to get curious about him. What she didn't know was that Aram's father was one of the wealthiest men in town, but the young man wasn't interested in the family business yet. He wanted to make it on his own. Aram not only worked at the coffee shop, but also held a part-time job at the community center. One day, while Sandy was taking the kids to school, she ran into a pervert. Shaken by the incident, Sandy decided to sign herself and the kids up for a self-defense class. Because of a sudden staffing need, Aram was urgently called in by the center. It turned out he was there to serve as a human punching bag. This hit a nerve for Sandy. When the instructor asked for volunteers, Sandy raised her hand. She walked up to the human punching bag. The instructor told her to recall her painful memory and unleash her anger on him. Aram tried to sneak away, but the crowd cheered him on to stay. Guided by the instructor, Sandy's pent-up resentment began to flare up, leading to the scene we saw at the start. The next day, Sandy went to the coffee shop and saw him limping around. She realized just how hard she had hit him. As an apology, she gave him one of her kids' potted plants. To make it up to him, Sandy offered him the nanny job. She figured since he worked at the community center, he must be trustworthy. Hearing that, Aram quickly agreed to come work for her. That evening, Aram arrived at Sandy's place. After briefing him on the kids' routine, she rushed out for her date, hoping to find a suitable stepfather for her kids. Sandy agreed to go on a date her friend recommended, but things didn't go as smoothly as she'd hoped. Although the guy seemed like a gentleman on the surface, whether they were at dinner or just walking around, he kept getting a little too handsy with her. Back at home, Henry was playing video games with the kids. Things were going great on his end, but Sandy's date was all over her the whole time. Sandy finally had enough. She hailed a cab and stopped the date right there. She returned home completely bummed out. Henry could tell her night hadn't gone well. He listened quietly as she vented to herself, but she seemed to forget that the nanny she hired was still in the room. Realizing the situation, Henry tried to slip away unnoticed, but he ended up standing there, listening to her pour out all her frustration. When she went to pay Henry for the night, she realized her wallet was empty. After seeing Sandy like this a few times, Henry started to feel really bad for her. His heart began to go out to this woman. Later, Sandy's kids rushed into the coffee shop, claiming something was wrong with their mom. Hearing this, Henry rushed back to the apartment with the kid. Once they got to Sandy's place, he tucked her in and tried to wake her up. When she saw a man standing by her bed, she panicked, thinking they'd slept together. Henry quickly assured her that nothing happened. Sandy breathed a huge sigh of relief, and just like that, in that quiet moment, Sandy suddenly realized that this young man standing before her was gentler and more thoughtful than she'd imagined. With Henry's help at home, Sandy was able to pour all her energy into her work. Her hard work and dedication soon caught the eye of her boss. At first, Sandy thought she was being fired, but to her surprise, she was getting a promotion and a raise. Sandy excitedly shared the news with her kids, and with Henry, too. Everyone was so happy for her, but when Henry's parents found out that he was working as a nanny, they were furious. But Aram felt the family would was just getting back on track, and really needed him right now, so he couldn't just walk away. He kept trying to convince his parents, but to get them off his back, Aram agreed to look for other jobs, while continuing to look after Sandy's kids. Meanwhile, Sandy's career was taking off, and she was quickly promoted to executive assistant. As for Aram, he was getting along great with the children. They would laugh and chat over dinner, looking just like a happy family of four, even taking the kids to school together every day. One night, Aram went to a bar with a friend, who introduced him to someone new, but after barely exchanging a few words, Aram was in a rush to leave. Spending so much time together had already sparked feelings between him and Sandy. That night, Sandy came home late from work. Aram had been waiting up for her, and had even thoughtfully prepared dinner. That weekend, the kids' dad took them to a theme park. Seizing the opportunity, Aram worked up the courage to ask Sandy out to a boxing match. Sandy happily agreed. He didn't think she'd be into that kind of thing, but she ended up enjoying it more than anyone. Suddenly, a stranger approached Aram, chatting him up enthusiastically, and handed him a business card before leaving. Sandy overheard their entire conversation. That was when she realized that to help her with the kid, Aram had turned down a job at a big company. The boxing match got more and more intense, until one fighter was knocked out of the ring, and landed right on top of Aram. Sandy helped him limp back home, tucked him into bed, and got his medicine ready. In that romantic atmosphere, just as something was about to happen, her ex-husband brought the kids home. He started complaining that the kids had picked up bad habits. The kids saw Aram was there too. They rushed over and hugged him happily. Taking the hint, Aram led the kids back to their room. Sandy didn't want to waste her breath on her ex. Seeing that Sandy was ignoring him, her ex stepped forward, trying to get in her face. Aram seemed to sense something was wrong outside. After tucking the kids in, he turned off the lights and stepped out. He walked into the living room and sat down nonchalantly. Sandy wanted to vent her anger at her ex, but her dignity prevented her from making a scene. All the emotions Sandy had been suppressing suddenly erupted. Her ex stormed out of the house in a rage. Sandy walked over to the window, shouted "I never loved you," and slammed it shut. The next day, Aram took her to a bar. He even introduced Sandy to his friend. When Aram went to get drink, he bumped into his ex-girlfriend. She told him she wanted to get back together, but Aram's gaze remained fixed on Sandy. His heart was already hers. After saying goodbye to his ex, Aram went back to Sandy. They continued dancing, enjoying the relaxed moment. Late that night, they returned home. Her best friend was there, babysitting. She had been waiting for quite a while. She teased Sandy, saying she didn't have to come back tonight. Sandy thanked her friend for watching the kids, then hurriedly shooed her out. It turned out Aram was hiding outside, sparks flying. They took their relationship to the next level that night. Soon after, Aram took Sandy and the kids to meet his parents, but his parents didn't have a single smile on their faces. Regarding their son's choice, they claimed to respect it, but clearly didn't want to discuss it. At the dinner table, everyone had birthday gifts ready for Aram. Sandy gave him a picture frame. It held a photo of Aram with the kids. Aram said he loved it, but then his mother gave him hers, a priceless heirloom watch. Seeing that gift, Sandy suddenly realized the gap between her background and Aram was truly worlds apart from his. Late that night, they carried the kids home. Aram tucked her daughter into bed. Then her son asked Aram to sing him a song, or else he'd throw up on him. Aram had no choice but to agree. Sandy stood outside the door, listening to it all. Aram's patience and tenderness erased any doubts she had left. Their relationship continued to grow steadily. Sandy invited Aram to a dinner with her colleague. Everyone was eager to gossip about them. Aram sensed their mockery, and decided to fire back right then and there. He deliberately singled out the guy with glasses. Everyone was shocked by his words. Sandy asked him if they were to ever break up, what he would do with his life. Aram replied that he'd travel the world alone. Sandy then asked if he wanted children of his own. The gap in their ages and background made Sandy worry about their future, but she was moved by Aram's devotion every time. One day, Sandy was reporting to her boss. He noticed she looked very pale. Sandy immediately checked the dates for her period. With her experience, she quickly realized that she was pregnant. Sandy told Aram the news right away, wanting to know what he really thought. Aram was shocked when he heard it. Obviously, neither of them was ready for a baby. Raising a child requires a huge amount of time and energy. They had to weigh this carefully, but Aram soon embraced the idea. He saw it as a symbol of their love, and insisted Sandy keep the baby. The next day, they went to the hospital for a checkup. While they were waiting, Aram was already brainstorming baby names. It was clear how much he was looking forward to this new life. The doctor said Sandy's health was fine, but then, things took a turn. Sandy went numb and couldn't hear another word. This unexpected loss became the final blow that broke their relationship, and completely pulled him back to reality. Sandy believed that Aram shouldn't waste his youth on someone like her. He needed to pursue his own dream, and find a partner who was better suited for him. Every word Sandy spoke pierced Aram's heart. Aram went back back to say goodbye to the children. None of them wanted to see him go. Aram set off to travel the world alone. At first, they couldn't stop thinking about each other, but as time went by, those feelings were gradually buried deep inside. Sandy got a promotion, becoming a well-known reporter, and her career was thriving. Aram visited many impoverished regions, where he helped local refugees, and even volunteered as a teacher for a while. Time always has a way of slipping by. Years later, Aram returned to the city he knew so well. He shared stories of the beautiful sights he'd seen, and the cultures he'd learned about with the kids. There were other girls who showed interest in him along the way, but Aram turned them all down. Fate eventually brought them back together. They caught up on each other's lives. After 5 years apart, seeing the person they had longed for day and night, they felt an unexpected distance between them. Just then, a little boy ran up and called Aram Dad. Sandy felt a sudden pang of loss. They gazed into each other's eyes. Suddenly, Aram's mother appeared and broke the silence. She knew that for all these years, her son had never truly let go of Sandy. Seeing them reunite, she decided to support her son's choice. Having not seen them for years, Sandy's 2 children had really grown up. The 2 families sat down together, and their hands naturally found their way to each other. This time, they wouldn't let go. After parting ways, they had lived their own lives, and continued to grow as individuals. Gradually, they came to understand the true nature of love. Only through such personal growth could they realize that companionship is what life is all about. Before they knew it, age was no longer an obstacle standing in their way. As their hands met in that quiet corner of reunion, it was a declaration of a love that would never change.